All right, good evening, everyone. First, apologies for sending out a video with no audio. Apparently, I'm having audio difficulties again. Hopefully, I've got it fixed. And I want to just do a quick recording now that my first one didn't work, to just talk a little bit about what's going on with the potential for well, not the potential, but the heat wave that is going to be impacting the the central and eastern United States over the coming week, and also the wildfires going on in the West. So I'm going to start here. I'm going to share my screen, and we're going to take a look at what's going on in the Western United States. And you can see here, this is a visible satellite loop of what we can see in the West this evening. And you can see there are a number of very large wildfires burning. Several of these across Colorado are new wildfires. And from what I'm seeing online, some of these are very active and spreading quite rapidly, with new evacuations being issued, particularly a couple of these here in central Colorado. You can also see this very large wildfire. We see these large smoke plumes heading downwind. That tells us the fire is very active. It's producing a lot of smoke, and you can even see and hear what looks like maybe a little bit of pyrocumulus clouds. You can really see a lot of billowing going on here on this fire here in southwest Colorado, which is, from what I'm seeing online, is one of the more active ones that's causing evacuations. And what we're anticipating here is, today we had this extreme fire danger across the Four Corners region, where we have these very active wildfires ongoing. As we go into tomorrow, the conditions will not be as extreme. We're basically looking at elevated to locally critical wildfire conditions. But the problem is, even though conditions are going to be somewhat improved, there's still going to be low relative humidities. There's still going to be gusty winds, and that really is going to continue through much of the week. There's really not going to be any appreciable rainfall in the Southwest, the Great Basin, through the coming week. And we're going to continue to have periods of gusty winds, low relative humidity. So even though conditions may be slightly improved as far as for like firefighting, overall, it's still going to be very poor. There's not going to be any like major improvement in conditions in the coming weeks. So unfortunately, I would expect that we're going to continue to have serious issues with wildfires out here in this part of the country through the upcoming week. So now I want to turn to the heat wave that we have coming to the eastern United States and central United States this week. And you're going to hear a lot in the media about heat dome. That's a term that's really come into vogue in the last few years, and I have mixed feelings about it. But really what we're talking about here is we're looking here at the 500 millibar forecast from the European ensemble model. We're looking at 18,000 feet above ground level. And when we talk about a heat dome, what we're really talking about here is this large anticyclone across, in this case, across much of the eastern United States. This is the forecast for tomorrow night at midnight. And essentially what we're going to see here is the reason why this is called a heat dome is because essentially you have a lot of sinking air under an anticyclone. And when you have that during the summer, it tends to build the heat. And as this upper level anticyclone is really just going to become established here. Now we're into Wednesday night at midnight. We're going into Thursday night at midnight, and you can see here for several days this heat dome is pretty well locked in across the eastern part of the United States. And so what we're looking at is a prolonged and building period of heat as we go into through the week and into the 4th of July holiday. As we get into the 4th of July weekend, and especially by next Sunday, we do start to see this weak upper level disturbance start to develop over the upper Midwest. And with that, we'll probably see some increase in cloud cover downstream of it, also see a little bit of a cool front trying to drop into the area. So that will start to erode the really extreme heat from the north. But for the Southeast, the Carolinas, that heat is going to be locked in into the first part of next week. So let's take a look at, I actually want to start by taking a look at overnight low temperatures, which might seem like an interesting thing to look at, but the reason why I want to look at that is because there's a lot of research that shows that overnight low temperatures are one of the big players in how dangerous a heat wave becomes, because when you go through several days with temperatures not getting below, say, 75 degrees, which is what we're going to look at here, people who have poor air conditioning or no air conditioning, they're really exposed to prolonged heat where their bodies are not getting a break because the temperatures are never getting cool. And so we really want to look at not only how high it's going to get, how high the temperature is going to get during the day, but also, are we going to see any relief at night? And the other reason I want to start by showing that this for the heat wave is because, generally speaking, where we have high minimum temperatures, we tend to have high humidity, and that also means we'll probably have, with warm afternoon temperatures, we're going to have high heat indices. So the low temperatures can really tell us a lot. And I want to look at this from a probabilistic sense because, especially as we get out longer in time, the probabilities give us an idea of, the potential uncertainty in the forecast as we go forward. So we're going to start off here by looking at the forecast probability of low temperatures above 75 degrees. So basically low temperatures in the upper 70s or warmer, starting with tomorrow morning. And you can see much of the south central part of the United States is way above 90%. So we're looking at mid to upper 70s lows here into the southeast. And starting to build here into the upper Midwest. And as we go into Tuesday morning, you can see high probability shifting into Wisconsin, the Chicago area. Wednesday morning, there's a little slight bit of a decrease, but as we go into Thursday, it starts to build into the Ohio Valley and Great Lakes region. By the time we're here into Thursday morning, you can see high probabilities of upper 70s lows here for much of Ohio, down into the Tennessee Valley, and starting to build across the mid-Atlantic and into parts of the Northeast. We go into Friday morning now. Really much of the eastern half of the United States is now looking at temperature overnight lows in the mid to upper 70s. And by Friday morning, or excuse me, by Saturday morning, the 4th of July, high probabilities here across the south central U.S. and across the mid-Atlantic and into the southeast. We do start to see a little bit of an erosion starting to occur here in the northeast, and that continues into Sunday. But for areas farther south, the Carolinas into the southeast, and even the mid-Atlantic, even as we go into Sunday morning, lows still high likelihood of upper 70s lows. And that really gives us an idea of this is going to be a very prolonged and uh, heat wave that's going to cover a very large part of the country. And the min temperatures give us, that, kind of overall view, but then we do want to look at the maximum temperatures too, obviously. And what I really want to hit hard are some of these forecast high temperatures in the east, because they are particularly high and unusual. So I'm going to look at the probability of temperatures greater than 99. So in other words, basically anywhere where the forecast is for triple digit high temperatures. And we can see here, go back in time here, hopefully. As we start the week off, most of the high probabilities are focused here in the middle part of the country through the plains. Some high probabilities tomorrow in parts of the southeast. As we go into Tuesday and Wednesday, especially by Wednesday, we start to see probabilities increasing along the eastern seaboard and in parts of the Great Lakes. And we go into Thursday, really high probabilities of triple digit, these air temperatures from the Weather Service's full blend of model, the full ensemble of all the different models. We're talking about probabilities, 90% of triple digits for DC, Philly, New York City, even up into southern New England. And that continues and really peaks out on Friday. You can see extremely high probabilities, over 100. We also have building probabilities again here in the plains. And while we start to see it erode a little bit into next weekend in the east, still for the Carolinas, Virginia, we're still talking about high likelihood of temperatures above 100. And what I want to show here is the probability of temperatures of 105 or higher, because those probabilities on Friday really peak out here in the mid-Atlantic. We're talking about 60 to 70% probabilities of 105 or higher in Washington, D.C., Richmond, Raleigh, up into the Philadelphia area, along the New Jersey coast and up into New York City. When we're talking about air temperatures potentially approaching 105 degrees for a couple of days in the big cities of the east, along with overnight lows in the upper 70s and heat index values that are going to be several degrees higher than these air temperatures, we're really talking about a high impact, dangerous heat scenario. And I know I've already seen people talking in some of the, Weather Service and other entities are starting to post about, the danger involved here. And I see people saying things like, oh, it's just heat, it's, just another summer day. It's not. This is highly unusual combination of excessive heat and humidity that's forecast. And the Weather Service has this product called Heat Risk, where they combine not only the air temperature, but the heat index, and also the how much overnight cooling there is, how low the temperatures get overnight, and how prolonged the heat stress is. So all of that goes into this Heat Risk product to give us an idea of the combined impact of heat. And by the time we get into Tuesday, you can see that extreme heat risk is building in the Midwest. By Wednesday, building through the Ohio Valley, the Great Lakes, most of Ohio is under extreme heat risk. That builds into Pennsylvania and New York on Thursday. By Friday, much of the eastern seaboard from New York down to Atlanta is in extreme risk. Ohio is in its third day of extreme heat risk. And while we start to see a little bit of a decrease from the north on the 4th of July, we still see that the big cities from New York City down to Washington, D.C., Philly, Richmond, Charlotte, Raleigh, Atlanta, all these areas are under major heat risk, as well as parts of the Ohio Valley and the Mid-South. So this is really going to be a prolonged, multi-day high heat scenario that people really need to be taking seriously, especially considering we're heading into the 4th of July weekend. A lot of people are going to be outdoors. So I just wanted to give a little bit more of a kind of behind the scenes, a little more details on the meteorology of what we're looking at here. I also want to mention that there will be some severe weather risk along the edge of this heat dome. I'm going to actually share again here for just a second and show that if we look at where this heat dome is forecast to be much of the week here across the Tennessee and Ohio valleys in the mid-Atlantic, when we talk about ring of fire thunderstorm activity, basically you're talking about thunderstorm complexes rotating around this big anticyclone. And so we would expect that with a lot of heat and humidity that we're going to see some of that activity around the edge of this anticyclone. Though these forecasting these complexes are notoriously challenging, even more so than normal thunderstorm forecasting, because when you have so much heat and humidity, it doesn't take a very strong disturbance to potentially develop some thunderstorms that the models didn't do a good job of picking up on. So that'll be something we'll be keeping a close eye on as well as we go through the week, especially again with a lot of people planning outdoor activities as we get closer to the 4th. So I'm going to go ahead and wrap it up here. Again, apologies for the false start earlier, and appreciate everybody being a Balanced Weather subscriber, supporter, and we'll talk to y'all soon.